Imagine waking up to your alarm clock, but instead of hitting snooze, you instinctively get up and start your day. No willpower required. Sounds too good to be true, right? Well, what if I told you that with a simple nudge, this could become your new reality? Welcome to CEO's Library, the 1% bookshelf, where we dive into the most impactful books, shaping industries, and driving innovation. I'm your host, and today we're exploring a book that's revolutionizing how we think about decision-making in business policy and our personal lives. Get ready to unlock the secrets of nudge improving decisions about health, wealth, and happiness by Richard H. Thaler and Thaler Sunstein. This isn't just another self-help book. It's a powerful tool that's reshaping economies, transforming public policy, and yes, even helping people like you and me make better choices every single day. So whether you're a seasoned executive looking to optimize your organization or an aspiring entrepreneur seeking that extra edge, stick around. By the end of this episode, you'll have insights that can quite literally change the world, one small nudge at a time. Now let's dive into the fascinating world of choice architecture. Imagine you're walking into your company's cafeteria. You're hungry, maybe a little stressed, and you just want to grab something quick before your next meeting. As you approach the food counter, what's the first thing you see? Is it a colorful array of fresh fruits and vegetables? Or is it a tempting display of sugary desserts and fried foods? Here's the kicker. The answer to that question could have a dramatic impact on what you end up eating, and consequently, on your health, your energy levels, and even your long-term well-being. This, my friends, is the power of choice architecture. Thaler and Sunstein introduce us to Carolyn, a fictional director of food services for a large city school system. Carolyn discovers that by simply changing the order in which food items are displayed in school cafeterias, she can increase or decrease the consumption of certain foods by as much as 25%. That's right, without changing the menu, without forcing anyone to eat anything they don't want to, Carolyn can nudge students towards healthier choices just by putting the carrots before the cookies. Now let's pause for a moment and think about the implications of this. As business leaders, we're constantly trying to influence behavior, whether it's our employees, our customers, or our partners. We invest millions in marketing campaigns, training programs, and incentive structures, but what if some of the most powerful tools at our disposal are actually much simpler and much cheaper? This is the essence of choice architecture. It's the idea that the way choices are presented to us has a profound impact on the decisions we make. And here's the exciting part. Once you understand this principle, you start seeing opportunities to apply it everywhere. Think about your company's website. Is the subscribe button hidden away in a corner, or is it front and center? When you're onboarding new employees, is the default option to enroll in the 401k plan, or do they have to actively choose to participate? These might seem like small details, but as we're learning, they can have outsized effects. But choice architecture isn't just about manipulating people into doing what we want. It's about creating environments that make it easier for people to make choices that align with their own goals and values. And this brings us to one of the most intriguing concepts in nudge, libertarian paternalism. Now, I know what you're thinking. Libertarian paternalism? Isn't that an oxymoron? That's exactly what I thought when I first encountered this term. But stick with me, because this idea could revolutionize the way you think about leadership and policy making. Libertarian paternalism is the idea that it's possible to influence behavior while still respecting freedom of choice. It's about nudging people towards better decisions without forcing their hand. Let's break this down. The libertarian part is all about preserving freedom of choice. Thaler and Sunstein are clear that people should be free to opt out of arrangements they don't like. They're not advocating for mandates or bans. The paternalism comes in because the authors believe that it's legitimate for choice architects, that could be business leaders, policymakers, or anyone in a position to influence others' choices, to try to nudge people towards options that will make their lives better. Now, you might be wondering, who decides what makes people's lives better? That's a great question, and it's one of the ethical considerations we'll dive into later in the episode. But for now, let's focus on how this principle can be applied. Imagine you're redesigning your company's retirement savings program. A libertarian paternalist approach might involve automatically enrolling employees in the 401k plan, but allowing them to opt out if they choose. You're nudging them towards saving for retirement, something most people want to do but often procrastinate about, while still preserving their freedom to make a different choice. Or consider a software company trying to improve the security of its products. They might make the most secure settings the default, while still allowing tech-savvy users to modify these settings if they wish. Again, it's about making the desired behavior easier without removing options. This approach can be particularly powerful when dealing with complex decisions where people might lack expertise or be prone to making errors. By carefully designing the choice environment, we can help guide people towards better outcomes without resorting to heavy-handed regulations or mandates. Now, I want you to take a moment and think about your own business or organization. Where could you apply libertarian paternalism? Are there areas where you're currently using mandates that could be replaced with nudges? Or are there situations where you're providing too little guidance, leaving people to struggle with complex decisions on their own? As leaders, we often focus on big, sweeping changes. But what nudge teaches us is that sometimes the most effective interventions are small and subtle. It's about understanding human behavior and designing systems that work with our natural tendencies rather than against them. Now that we've laid this groundwork, let's dive deeper into why these nudges are so effective. To understand this, we need to explore what Thaler and Sunstein call the two systems of thinking, the automatic system and the reflective system. Picture this. You're driving home from work on a route you've taken hundreds of times before. Suddenly you realize you've been on autopilot for the last 10 minutes, barely aware of your surroundings. That's your automatic system in action. Now imagine you're faced with a complex mathematical problem. You furrow your brow, perhaps grab a pen and paper, and consciously work through the steps to solve it. That's your reflective system taking charge. The automatic system is fast, intuitive, and often emotional. It's what allows us to make split-second decisions and navigate familiar situations with ease. The reflective system, on the other hand, is slower, more deliberate, and logical. It's what we use when we need to think through complex problems or learn new skills. Here's the kicker. While we like to think of ourselves as primarily rational beings, using our reflective system to carefully weigh our options, the reality is that our automatic system is in charge far more often than we realize, and this has profound implications for decision-making. Let me give you an example from the business world. Imagine you're a hiring manager reviewing resumes. You might think you're objectively evaluating each candidate based on their qualifications, but research shows that unconscious biases, products of our automatic system, often play a significant role. Maybe you're subtly influenced by the candidate's name or the university they attended, even if these factors aren't relevant to the job. Or consider consumer behavior. Why do people often choose the middle option when presented with three choices? It's not because they've carefully evaluated all the options. It's because our automatic system often defaults to compromise when we're unsure. Understanding these two systems is crucial for effective leadership and decision-making. It helps us recognize our own biases and limitations, and it allows us to design better systems and processes that account for how people actually think and behave. For instance, if you're trying to encourage employees to save more for retirement, Appealing to their reflective system with logical arguments about compound interest might not be as effective as you'd think. Instead, you might design a system that makes saving the default option, leveraging the automatic system's tendency to go with the flow. Or if you're a marketer trying to influence consumer behavior, you might focus less on providing more information which engages the reflective system and more on creating positive associations or simplifying the decision process, which appeals to the automatic system. The key insight here is that if we want to change behavior, whether our own or others, we need to engage both systems. We need to create environments that make the right choices easier and more intuitive, while also providing the information and tools people need to make thoughtful decisions when it matters most. Now let's see how these ideas play out in the real world. It's time to explore some concrete examples of nudges in action. Let's start with a topic that's relevant to every business leader and employee: retirement savings. We all know we should be saving for retirement, but for many people, it's a classic case of good intentions and poor follow-through. Enter the power of the nudge. One of the most successful applications of nudge theory has been in the realm of 401k plans. Traditionally, employees had to actively choose to enroll in these plans. Despite the clear benefits, many people never got around to it. They procrastinated, they got confused by the paperwork, or they simply never made it a priority. But what if we flipped the script? What if, instead of requiring people to opt in to the 401k plan, we automatically enrolled them and allowed them to opt out if they chose? This simple change, switching the default from non-participation to participation, has had dramatic effects. Studies have shown that automatic enrollment can boost participation rates from around 40% to 90% or even higher. That's potentially millions more people saving for a secure retirement, all thanks to a simple nudge. But it doesn't stop there. Thaler himself developed a program called Save More Tomorrow, which goes a step further. This program invites employees to commit in advance to increasing their savings rate whenever they get a raise. By tying the savings increase to a future pay raise, it makes the decision feel less painful. People are essentially saving more without feeling like they're giving anything up. The results? In one early study, participants in the Save More Tomorrow program increased their savings rates from 3.5% to 13.6% over the course of just 3.5 years. That's a staggering improvement, achieved without any mandates or financial incentives. Now let's shift gears and look at how nudges can literally save lives. Consider the issue of organ donation. In many countries, there's a severe shortage of organ donors, leading to long waiting lists and preventable deaths. How can we address this without infringing on personal freedom? The answer, once again, lies in defaults. In some countries, like the United States, people have to actively choose to become organ donors. They have to opt in. In others, like Austria, everyone is presumed to be an organ donor unless they explicitly opt out. The difference in outcomes is stark. In opt-in countries, organ donation consent rates tend to hover around 15%. In opt-out countries, they're often above 90%. Same choice, different default, dramatically different results. Now, I can already hear some of you thinking, but isn't this manipulation? Are we really comfortable with governments or corporations nudging us in this way? These are valid concerns, and they bring us to an important point about the ethics of nudging, which we'll discuss in more depth later. But for now, consider this. In both systems, people have the freedom to choose. The nudge simply helps align our actions with intentions that many of us already have. Let's look at one more example, this time from the world of environmental conservation. We all know that reducing energy consumption is important, both for the environment and for our wallets. But despite our best intentions, it's easy to fall into wasteful habits. How can nudges help? One ingenious solution comes from a study conducted in California. Researchers sent out electricity bills that showed customers not just their own energy use, but how it compared to their neighbors' usage. They even included a smiley face for households using less than average, and a frowny face for those using more. The result? People who were using more energy than their neighbors reduced their consumption. It's a classic example of leveraging social norms, our tendency to want to fit in with those around us, to encourage positive behavior. But here's where it gets really interesting. The researchers found that adding the smiley face was crucial. Without it, below-average energy users tended to increase their usage to match the norm. With the smiley face, they maintained their low usage. It's a powerful reminder that the details matter in designing effective nudges. These examples just scratch the surface of how nudges can be applied, from encouraging healthier eating in school cafeterias to improving tax compliance. The potential applications are virtually limitless. As business leaders, the implications are profound. How might you use nudges to improve productivity, enhance safety, or boost customer satisfaction? Could you redesign your office layout to encourage more collaboration? Could you tweak your product's default settings to promote more sustainable use? The key is to start looking at every choice environment as an opportunity. Where are the pain points in your organization? Where do you see a gap between what people intend to do and what they actually do? These are prime candidates for nudges. But as with any powerful tool, nudges must be used responsibly. And that brings us to some important ethical considerations. As we've explored the power of nudges, you might have felt a mix of excitement and unease. On one hand, the potential to positively influence behavior on a large scale is immense. On the other hand, the idea of being nudged, especially without our explicit awareness, can feel, well, a bit creepy. These are valid concerns, and Thaler and Sunstein address them head-on in Nudge. They argue that nudges are not only ethically permissible but often ethically required. Their reasoning? In many situations, some form of choice architecture is inevitable. Whether we like it or not, decisions have to be presented in some way, and that presentation will inevitably influence choices. Consider a cafeteria again. The food has to be arranged in some order. There's no truly neutral way to do this. So if we know that the order influences choices, don't we have a responsibility to arrange it in a way that promotes health? But this doesn't mean that anything goes in the world of nudging. Thaler and Sunstein propose several important ethical guidelines. First, transparency is key. Nudges should not be hidden or deceptive. If you're implementing a nudge, you should be willing and able to defend it publicly. Second, opting out should be easy. Remember, we're talking about libertarian paternalism here. The freedom to choose differently must be preserved. Third, there should be good reason to believe that the nudge will improve people's welfare. This is where things can get tricky. Who decides what's in people's best interests? Thaler and Sunstein argue that in many cases we can make reasonable judgments about what people would choose if they had complete information and unlimited cognitive abilities. Let's pause here and consider a challenge that many of you as business leaders might face. How do you balance the use of nudges to improve your bottom line with the ethical imperative to improve people's welfare? Is it okay to nudge customers towards more expensive products, to nudge employees towards working longer hours? There's no easy answer, but I'd argue that the most successful nudges, the ones that will build long-term customer loyalty and employee satisfaction, are those that genuinely align with people's own goals and values. The win-win scenarios, if you will. For instance, nudging customers towards products that better meet their needs, even if they're more expensive, can lead to higher satisfaction and repeat business. Nudging employees towards better work-life balance might seem counterintuitive, but it can lead to increased productivity and retention in the long run. The key is to always ask yourself, if my customers or employees understood everything about this choice, what would they want? If you're confident that your nudge aligns with their true preferences, you're on solid ethical ground. But let's not shy away from the potential for misuse. In the wrong hands, the insights from behavioral economics could be used to exploit people's cognitive biases for nefarious ends. We've all seen examples of dark patterns in web design. For instance, interfaces deliberately designed to trick users into taking actions they didn't intend. This is why it's crucial for ethical leaders to not only use nudges responsibly themselves, but also to educate others about these principles. By promoting transparency and empowering people to make informed choices, we can harness the power of nudges while safeguarding against manipulation. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with a challenge. Over the next week, start paying attention to the nudges around you. Notice how the layout of your grocery store influences your purchases. Consider how the default settings on your devices shape your behavior. Then think about your own sphere of influence. Where could you implement positive nudges? Remember, leadership isn't just about making big, bold decisions. Often, it's about creating an environment that brings out the best in people. And sometimes, that comes down to the smallest of nudges. As we come to the end of our journey through nudge, let's recap some of the key takeaways and consider their broader implications. First, we've learned that choice architecture is ubiquitous and unavoidable. Every decision we make is influenced by the context in which it's presented. As leaders, this means we have both the power and the responsibility to design choice environments thoughtfully. Second, we've explored the concept of libertarian paternalism, the idea that we can guide people towards better choices while still preserving their freedom to choose differently. This approach offers a middle ground between heavy-handed regulation and a completely hands-off approach. Third, we've delved into the two systems of thinking, automatic and reflective, and seen how understanding these systems can help us design more effective interventions. And finally, we've looked at real-world applications of nudges, from increasing retirement savings to promoting organ donation to encouraging energy conservation. So what does all this mean for you as business leaders and innovators? I believe the insights from nudge offer us a new lens through which to view our challenges and opportunities. Whether you're trying to improve employee productivity, enhance customer experience, or drive societal change, the principles of behavioral economics can be powerful tools in your arsenal. But more than that, I think nudge challenges us to think differently about the nature of choice and freedom. In a world of increasing complexity, where people are bombarded with more information and options than ever before, perhaps true freedom isn't just about having more choices. Perhaps it's about having the right choices presented in a way that allows us to align our actions with our true intentions. As leaders, we have the opportunity, and I would argue the obligation, to create environments that make it easier for people to make good choices, not by restricting options or resorting to coercion, but by understanding human behavior and designing systems that work with our natural tendencies rather than against them. Imagine a world where saving for retirement is effortless, where choosing healthy food is the easy option, where our devices default to privacy-protecting settings. This is the world that nudges can help create. But it's crucial to remember that with this power comes great responsibility. As we've discussed, the ethical use of nudges requires transparency, easy opt-outs, and a genuine commitment to improving people's welfare. As you consider implementing nudges in your own organizations, I encourage you to keep these principles at the forefront of your mind. I also want to encourage you to think big. While many of the examples we've discussed might seem small, changing a default here, tweaking a layout there, their cumulative impact can be enormous. And as more organizations adopt these principles, we have the potential to create large-scale systemic change. Just think, what if every company designed its products with sustainability in mind? What if every government program was structured to maximize participation and effectiveness? What if every school cafeteria was arranged to promote healthy eating? The possibilities are truly exciting. But change starts with individuals, so I challenge each of you to become choice architects in your own spheres of influence. Look for opportunities to implement positive nudges, educate others about these principles, and always strive to create environments that bring out the best in people. Remember, sometimes the smallest nudge can set off a cascade of positive change. As the authors of Nudge remind us, to err is human, but to really foul things up requires a computer. Let's use our understanding of human behavior, both its strengths and its weaknesses, to design systems that help us make better decisions, achieve our goals, and ultimately lead more fulfilling lives. Before we close, I want to remind you that the link to purchase the full book or audiobook of Nudge Improving Decisions About Health, Wealth, and Happiness by Richard H. Thaler and Thaler Sunstein is available in the episode description. I highly encourage you to dive deeper into this fascinating topic. The book is filled with even more examples, insights, and practical applications that we couldn't cover in this episode. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of Nudge on CEO's Library, the 1% bookshelf. I hope you found it as enlightening and inspiring as I have. Remember, the power to shape behavior and ultimately to change the world often lies in the smallest of nudges. Until next time, keep reading, keep learning, and keep nudging in the right direction.